Right. Today I'm speaking with Jack Clarke. He is a independent producer. Jack, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Tom. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very good, very good. Yeah, we're going to be talking about well, lots of things, hopefully, but certainly your latest project. But before we sort of get onto that, as I ask everyone, how did you get involved with filmmaking and film generally?
Well, it's kind of a long but both short story at the same time. So I've always kind of like been interested in film. So my first sort of venture into interest in film was watching the film They Live as a child.
Brilliant
Um,
film.
I was, yeah, I was really young when I watched it. It was on like the old horror channel, if anybody remembers that. And it was kind of like really late at night. And I watched it and I'm like, this is the most unique and different film I've ever seen. Because I wasn't really exposed to the sort of the wider world of filmmaking at that time. I was watching like, children's TV really.
Sure.
And I'm like, it kind of stuck with me in my head. All like the shots, the story, everything about it stuck with me in my head. And I kind of just like went from there really. I started exposing myself to more sort of films like John Carpenter films. I watched stuff like The Thing, Dark Star, stuff like that. And then from there, I kind of just like, so I did it in high school, studied media studies, quite enjoyed it, and then I went to university, Uni of Salford, studied media production, and from there I've been very fortunate to actually hook up with one of my lecturers. He's like an indie sort of producer director, and he took a shining to me really because he sort of saw my determination in trying to get it done as opposed to a lot of other students that were on the course. And he just kind of said we were making a film. You start off doing a couple of the sort of drag work, like production assistant, sound, stuff like that. Nobody ever wants to do at indie level, and then now it's kind of like I'm co-producing the film, so it's like I'm doing tons of other stuff as well for indie people. So it's like it's kind of skyrocketed from there, really. And it's like, yeah, this sky's the limit at the moment, to be honest. Yeah.
That's cool. And again, it sort of work ethic, that you're putting in the effort early on and proving that you want to be there rather than sort of like not showing up and all that sort of stuff. So you get rewarded, don't you? People kind of go, right, you're serious about making films, come on board, sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean that's like I'd say that's the best way to do it because the thing is, it's like at my age, I'm 22, and it's like a lot of students kind of like they're kind of too in it for the money, or they're not in it for the right reasons. And the thing is, when you're in it for the right reasons, you will get rewarded for it because everybody that's in film is either insane or crazily artistic, or probably both, to be honest. And then when they see somebody else that's a bit like that, it's like staying up for like 48 hours to edit a video, then they'll go, right, you're just the right kind of insane to come on this project. And
Yeah,
that kind of the people that are for film for that's what makes film very special. It's very unique, weird, strange sort of people that you're interacting with, to be honest. And you kind of put yourself out there a lot more, even if you're not earning any money. You really got to put yourself out there and just like I always went in with the philosophy like work like I'm being paid, in
yeah,
that sort of sense. So I pretend in my head almost that I am earning a wage, so then, like, I'm always putting that same amount of effort in, and I think that's kind of helped me. And I wish more people had that sort of philosophy about it. But it is what it is, really, to be honest. But yeah, crazy
sure.
people for crazy people.
No, it is. It is. Yeah, you've got to be a special kind of insane to want to make anything really, any in film, certainly. Um, So do you want to talk
Yeah.
about what you're doing right now, the project that you're on now? Because when you contacted me, it sounded really interesting. So do you want to, what's it called, and do you want to sort of talk about what the idea is?
Yeah, well, yeah, no, of course. It's got a title that's quite interesting. It's called "Nobody Loves You and You Don't Deserve to Exist." That's not aimed at you, by the way. Um, but it's heart. It's reminiscent of the old Ingmar Bergman film, where it really has something to say. And it's got a lot of heart. It's quite personal. The director and writer Brett Gregory, he writes it from a lot of personal experience, a lot of trauma, and to sort of describe it in sort of like terms of like the actual plot. It is really about like an ex-English teacher, and he embarks on like his own existential journey, and you kind of just see like all sorts of stuff in Manchester. It's quite surreal, but also real at the same time. And I guess one of the like aims of the film is to like actually show off Manchester and a Northwest experience, and also the an authentic working class experience, because I don't think we actually see that much anymore in film. To be honest, we kind of see all this kitchen sink stuff, and it's like, to me, it's like almost like offensive in some ways to the actual how working classness is. And one things we don't see, which is the name of this film, is actually seeing Manchester in cinema portrayed properly. Because you look at the history of film and you look at the list of films made in Manchester, kind of about Manchester, it's very few. It really is very few. And you actually, a lot of people have said to, it's like, name me a film you've gone to the cinema and seen it's actually from Manchester. It's got that Manchester identity about it. It's got a Northwest identity. And I'll go, they literally can't name one. They can't name one at all. And that's like our aim with our film and films going forward. We want to make art films about Manchester, for Manchester, to put Manchester on the map, because it's, at the end of the day, it could be a city as big as New York, but for some reason it's not. And we really set out to change that, to be honest.
No, I mean that's brilliant, and it's also very true what you just said. I've said this quite a few times when I've been speaking to filmmakers about, certainly UK-based filmmakers, that film is and has been for a very long time very, very London-centric. Everything that is filmed on any sort of budget, even on TV, is kind of based around London and a stereotype version of London. And if it's outside of London, it's like maybe Scotland or maybe some other sort of little sort of niche. Yeah, in terms of places where people live, cities, Manchester, so anywhere in the north. You're right. There's not many films, and I'm struggling to think of any now. As I said, that based, filmed, and about, say, people in Manchester, and then you throw in the working class element, as in they're normally just sort of caricatures, two-dimensional sort of gangster villains or whatever. So I think it's brilliant what you're trying to do, and it's necessary, and I think that alone is gonna help you stand out from all the other noise and content that's being made. Do you know what I mean? So I mean that sounds really cool. I mean, where are you with the project? Is this sort of pre-production going into being made? Are you involved in it right now? What's the sort of timeline?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's been in the works for about 6 years, which to a lot of people sounds insane to dedicate your life for about 6 years, but for me, it's only been about two.
Mm.
So Brett, the writer director, he was made redundant, and he kind of used the redundancy to sort of fund him. He was grieving as well at the time, and he used the redundancy to sort of get him through writing the actual original screenplay, and that took about 2 years. And then he had contacts anyway, because he'd done films in the past. He'd done a bunch of documentaries, like about music and stuff, for the Beyond series that he did. And at the moment, a lot of people say, well, what's your budget? What's your money? And at the moment, it's quite interesting because we're kind of like almost pocket funded, and like kind of just like doing it ourselves. So we're using like legacy equipment. The DOP that we've got, Gwyn, he's got all his own gear, all his own lighting. We've got gear from the past. I can get gear from university that I'm at, because I'm still studying my MA at the moment. So it's almost like we're kind of like piecing together stuff from a scrapyard to make a film, really. But yeah, we've been in production for quite a while. We've had a couple of setbacks. Pandemic was a big setback, but we managed to work around it by doing a couple of like general view shots, stuff in Manchester, whilst it was quite quiet and stuff like that. But we're about 85% of the way through. We've got one more big scene to do, which is up at this place called Stoodley Pike in Todmorden, which is quite the journey, really, to be honest. And after that, we've kind of entering like the post-production stage, like proper post at the moment. We've done like little edits in between here and there, just when we've got the footage. And then it'll be distribution, which from a lot of indie filmmakers I've heard is like a different beast in itself, really. That is where the hard work is, trying to get your film known. So we're a good way through. There's a lot of stuff to kind of hurdle over, but that's indie filmmaking in general, really. It is hurdles constantly. So
Yeah,
we hope to be done by the end of the year, really, to be honest.
I mean that sounds brilliant, and they said, the fact that you've done sort of 80% or so is an achievement in itself. And you're right, it's getting across the finishing line and then distribution. Um, what, obviously you're only speaking for yourself, but in terms of the project, but also your thoughts, on, say, distribution, again, from an independent point of view. Do you have a plan, one, for the film, and two, do you have any thoughts on the distribution model for independent filmmakers at the moment? As in, is it healthy? Is it not healthy? Is it difficult? Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, at the moment, it's quite different because the model hasn't really changed. If you look at it in theory from like the past 20 years, the model is for indie filmmakers at least, get your film made to the best standard possible and then just submit it to festivals. And it's not really changed since then. And to me, it's both a good and bad model. I mean, what we want to do with ours is we want to almost take it on tour like a band would do with their own music. We want to start screening it in bars, pubs, go around anywhere we can with it. You buy a projector, just go, yeah, our pub, you're all right. Can we show our film? You put some nibbles on, put some, beer on. You make the money from that. We make the money from the film. And that's our methodology in trying to approach it. Do it like the Rolling Stones do.
I love that. I love that.
Just go
Very good.
anywhere, play it. Treat it like music.
See, that I think is really
Yeah, yeah, but
that's really cool. If I just interject, because that's quite an important thing. Um,
yeah,
I don't understand why more people don't do that at the moment. Because one, you can technology wise, um, and obviously COVID and everything else the last 18 months, 2 years, whatever, has been different and difficult for, say, film festivals. But you're right, everyone, and I'm talking from a little bit experience, not vast, but I produced a short film that went through the film festival stuff, and talking to countless other people that have done the same. And it's almost like the naivety of, I don't want to say all, but some filmmakers, in terms of, and I don't want to badmouth festivals or people that run festivals because they're passionate about what they're doing, but a festival thing is a business in of itself. Do you know what I mean? So it's like you're
yeah,
you're, you're paying money that normally by that time the process you don't have. So you're trying to raise more money or borrow more money to pay to get it into the festivals. So the festivals are making money. Some would say they don't make very much, but you're paying the festivals and they're showing your film. But kind of, so what? Do you know what I mean? Like, some people
yeah,
get to see it, great. And if you're super lucky, you might sit next to a distribution company and they go, "Oh, we love your film. Here's a bag of money to buy it off you." But that's
mhm,
not most people's experience. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think
yeah,
if it's your project that you've spent years behind and you believe in and everything else, and you put your own money into it, blah blah blah, it's, why then just give it away to someone else who doesn't really value it and they're just buying films for peanuts, and you never kind of see where it goes? Why not keep ownership of your thing, and do what you're saying, that you could you take it on tour yourself? Could you joint venture in independent cinemas and get them to do screenings, and you split the takings or whatever? um I think that's, if you've got the team and you've got the time to do it, I think that's a really cool way of at least getting out there, even if you do festivals after. But it's your thing. Why give it away? You wouldn't get um, bands or more established filmmakers who've got the ownership of their material, because they know how precious their material is, just to sort of give it away, unless it's for huge sums of money. And no independent filmmaker is really going to get huge sums of money. Even if it's a large sum of money relative to what they put in, it's probably not much more. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, keep hold of it, because you can control it. The amount of people I've spoken to who when I'm trying to, from the independent film and from the film dimensions point of view, when I'm looking for content and I've seen a film I think it's really cool, and I'm contacting them and saying, "Look, can we put your film on the site?" And then they saying, this is like the director saying, "Yeah, sure, but you'd have to speak to the production company because they've paid us a little bit of money, and I don't know who they are or where they are, and I can't get hold of them myself. So you'd have to try to email them." And it's like they don't have their film anymore. It's not theirs. They've sold it for like nothing. Do you know what I mean? So I think your approach is really interesting, and wish you a lot of luck doing that, because I think it will work.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, that's the thing, like you describe about ownership of your project. A lot of people really want to make films, and that's all fine. That's amazing if you want to make your films. But there's a lot of like, unfortunately, there's a lot of like nitty gritty hands, and there's a lot of nitty gritty business involved. And when you start to make your film, almost like when you come to the end of it, we've realized it becomes a product almost, and
Mm,
you can't help that. Especially if you've got something of quality, of something of good. That if you're putting your soul into it, it's going to be good, regardless of what the subject is or whatever. It's going to, if you put your heart and soul into it, and you're putting everything into it, it's going to be a good. It's going to be a good film, typically, because you know when the heart's in it, it's in the right place. And a lot of people, because the distribution process, we're realizing it now, really, because I'm sort of taking a big sort of lead on that as a producer. But it's like, it's a whole other process. You've got the actual making of the film, and then you've got distribution, which is it's a whole other process in itself. I'd argue it's harder at the moment. It's harder because you know how do you get people to watch your film? You know who've you got in your film? We've not got like Tom Cruise knocking about in our film. How do we get people to watch it? And that's kind of why we want the ownership of it, which is
mm.
why you know we've got the documents sorted, we've got release forms, all this sort of stuff, which a lot of filmmakers miss out, unfortunately, because it's
It's
not.
the
It's not.
business, it's the business side of it, isn't it? And a lot of filmmakers
Yeah,
don't want to get involved. Oh, but that's a producer's job, which is fine if you've got a competent producer and one that knows and cares about what they're doing. Um, yeah, it's I say it's as difficult as the actual filmmaking process.
yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, we've been fortunate to kind of know how to get stuff like release forms, but I understand it from a lot of filmmakers' point of view. Even my own, you just want to create. If you got an idea, you want to make it done. You don't want to be involved in any of that stuff. That's kind of why you want to do filmmaking, because you don't want to be involved in any of like the bureaucracy of anything. You want to just make art a lot of the time, and it's personal to you. But unfortunately, it's like to protect you and your artwork per se. You know, artists they sign the bottom of their paintings. You know, it's the same way we're doing with our work. You know, we're putting our signature on it and saying like, look, this is ours. If you want an hand in it, talk to us. If you don't want an hand in it, go away. If you know, we'll do it ourselves otherwise. That and you
I,
know the model of like film distribution these days is it's just a lot of people just think festival. I mean, festivals are cool, and if you target the right ones, you can probably get something out of it, you know. And if you've got the money and funding to do so, then great. But if you can't do festivals, don't let your film die on YouTube or anywhere like Vimeo. You know, start putting it places. Just do
yeah,
anything. Put as much effort as you've put in production, and it will go somewhere if you do so. I think.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I think that's cool. I don't know. Well, I do know why in many ways, but more people should do the same. And hopefully now, as things are opening up and everything else, that you know, the idea that you could do screenings in bars and in cinemas and whatever is now a reality again. So yeah, that's really cool. And again, I think, as I said, it's kind of like doing your own festival, but just for your film. It makes much more sense because you're still interacting with the people that are watching it, but even at a more personal level. And then people say, "Oh yeah, but how do you get 100 people in the room or 500 people in the room?" But if that's why building up a following and building up people that are aware of the fact that you were making this film, and certainly if you've got something unique, like it sounds like you do have, and it's not just a generic film where it could be confused with 10 other films, then
Mm.
hopefully that reaches your audience enough to go, yeah, I'm going to come out and pay whatever £10 tickets to see this film, you know, certainly because they can't see it anywhere else, you know. But it reminds me of the book, the authoring um, business, and the idea that you know publishing houses will only buy established authors' books because they know they've already got a million customers
Yeah.
to sell their new book, and they very often won't even look at new authors unless they can prove that new author has like 50,000, 100,000 followers on social media. But again, it's chicken and egg. How do you get that sort of thing? But it's the ownership. If you own, again, like bands as well, you know, the established bands signed to a record label, and then the record label starts messing them around and start trying to alter what they're doing. They're like, well, we're leaving there because you're not. allowing us to do what we want. It's like if you've got the ownership of it, you're in control. You know, if everyone's saying that this film is brilliant, and even if you put it on YouTube, which I don't think you should, but and you get a lot of views, 100,000 views, 500,000 views, then you're in so much of a stronger position if you do go to a film festival or if you do try to sell it to a distribution. But at the same time, it's like if you've done that work, why the hell would you sell it to a distribution house? Because they're not going to do that. There's no magic that they do that you can't do. Do you know what I mean? It's like why give
Yeah.
them your hard work? You could either put it on Amazon or anywhere else. Hopefully not Amazon, because you own the pathway to your art. You know. So I think that's really really cool. I mean, you said you are still studying at university as well. How do you view British filmmaking at the moment from an independent point of view?
Um, I'd say at the moment it seems to be few and far between. I mean, there's a lot of like, as a student, there's a lot of student films being made, but they're like concepts outside of England, outside of Britain. They're almost like Americanized, very much so, and they don't really go very far beyond being student films. So you've got that whole level of educational films almost that are just not really going anywhere, not really doing anything with them, and they're not really exploring concepts within England. I mean, I spoke to a lot of people about, writing screenplays, for example. I spoke to a friend a while ago, and he's writing a screenplay for like a cop drama set in America, and I'm like, why won't you set it in Manchester or set it in the North or something? He's like, oh, the North's boring, or England's boring. I don't want to be boring. I'm like, dude, that's the only thing you know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why would you write something that you don't know? Write something that you know. Write an honest story. My favorite films are like Alan Clarke films, like stuff like Made in Britain
Mm,
with Tim Roth, and
yeah, brilliant
Scum
film.
that had a Ray Winston in it. And it's like we need more films like this because they were true films, and there's not many filmmakers, if any, that are making films like that anymore. You've got Ben Wheatley out there that was making stuff like Down Terrace and stuff like that. That
Mm,
was quite good, quite well made. You got Ken Loach that did stuff like I Daniel Blake and stuff like that, and Kes. And it's
yeah.
like we don't want one-offs. I want every British filmmaker that's coming from this background that's in education to be making British films, because British films, where are they? Well, there's not
Mm,
many of them that are authentic to me. It's either Downton Abbey-esque
yeah.
stuff where it's like almost like caricatures of like being classy and being like sort of like conservative, or it's
Yeah. I
just
mean,
like down south stuff like
yeah. It's almost like Guy Ritchie kind of got it with Lock, Stock, and Snatch, even though they were kind of supposed to be sort of quasi comical and yeah, gangster sort of stuff. But then I guess he kind of got seduced with Hollywood and making films that really didn't represent any aspect of um, Britain or any true substance. And you're right, it's like I can't think of many filmmakers, even the indie stuff that I've come across, that even if they're set in this country, it almost seems that there's I don't know if people are afraid of doing it or just unsure, but there's very few films that say anything
mm,
in the last, like, say, 5 years, or
mm,
probably beyond that. But
mm,
and if you think the amount of crazy shit that's been going on globally in this country, be it politics, news, economics, whatever it is, there's tons of things people should be talking about. Do you know what I mean? Be it, I don't know, the environment or social
no,
structure, whatever it is. But like no one's talking about, but not talking about in a cinematic way, as in it's either they go too heavy on it, it's just two people sitting in a room talking about something, which has its place a bit, but could soon get quite boring. But it's basic storytelling, but with substance, and you don't see enough of it, I don't think.
well, it's like I thought would happen before COVID even. I thought that would happen was this Brexit situation, which has a big impact on the film industry.
Yeah.
Would would create like a new wave of sort of like post-Brexit cinema, because you had it in Germany with the, like, post the Weimar Republic and stuff like that, and the rise
Yeah,
of Nazis, and they had the German Expressionist movement, which was around similar conditions, to be honest, that
yeah,
we're currently
yeah.
going through. And
Vibrant.
I argue, yeah, why won't we have a cinema movement? Why can't we have a cinema movement like this? That's kind of like, we go in a lot in our film that we're making now. We go with that sort of like thing in the back of our mind. Like, we're trying to create something that could start a movement of cinema, of people wanting to express themselves properly about, reacting to the situation. Like in our film, we incorporated part of the narrative to be COVID. The character in his older stage, because basically the character in the film is called Jack, and he basically is portrayed like in all different stages of his life, from a child to being an adult. And his adult life, it's set in 2020, and he's reacting to COVID and people he knows dying and such like that. And that's in the same way a documentary filmmaker would react to the current goings on. You've got to do it as a filmmaker as well, I think so as well. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, I was having this conversation literally yesterday with a friend of mine he's not a writer. I wouldn't claim to be a writer myself, but we are having a go at writing a script for like a short film. It's going to look just a short. It's kind of a comedy, but we were just saying, and he was talking about he had just seen uh what's the film? The Tomorrow War
Oh
uh,
yes, with
on
Tom, Chris
on
Pratt.
that's
Chris
one
Pratt.
on Amazon. I heard it on the radio. I thought that's an awful name. Like that's such a rubbish name for a film. And he watched it. He downloaded a legal copy. He didn't pay for it. But he was just saying that the script that we've been working on is so much better than the script in that film. Like the dialogue and everything else. And it's like how is this still being churned out? There's no concept of story or narrative or even believable dialogue. And it's like I I the same thing with short films. Like I see quite a lot of short films made by people, this country, other countries, that look beautiful. Like they're really technically well made films, but they don't have any story. They do not tell a story. There's no story arc. There's no development of anything. And you just after 10, 12 minutes, you just go, okay, what the fuck was that about? I didn't learn anything about the character. Do you know what I mean? I didn't learn anything about what they were trying to do, where they were going, and it's just weird.
Yeah, well, it's like, even if you have like something as simple as like, like a 3 act narrative, or like your 5 act narrative, like basic narrative structure, you can build something around. If you've not got a story or some sort of substance, at its most basic, you've not really got a film. And I've found it from an educational point of view, where I've been in my studies at university, and they teach you so much about the technical side, like, oh, this is how a black magic camera works, this is how an ARRI camera works. And you can make a piece of poo look amazing. You can make it look like you can make it like Tom Cruise on camera if you really wanted to. But it's like they don't teach you enough, or there's not enough being pumped into actually what is a story, what makes a good story, what makes good dialogue, what makes good narratives. And a lot of the stuff they're showing you as examples is like really modern mainstream stuff. And I'm like, there is other stuff. There's Alan Clarke's stuff that was shot well, dialogued well, written well. Why can you not show us that? And they just look at you like I'm the bad guy in the room. I'm like, come on now.
Yeah,
We're doing a film course here, and you're showing us about like like an end of films, and it's like no wonder people are just like shooting stuff and just like, and then wondering why it's not good, because you've got to have a script that's good. You've got to perfect it. Even if it takes like a year, 2 years, like with ours, you've got to get it good, and then you go, right, this is ready to film. You don't just go, oh, here's my script in a week, or I'm not changing it. It's my script. I'm really precious about it, and then you just film it, because you are going to just film a toilet reel, and nobody wants to see a toilet on screen, do they?
yeah, yeah. No, I totally agree with what you're saying. But I suppose is cause and causality, isn't it? It's perhaps you need that void to grow big enough to go two or three people to go, right, okay, we're going to do something else to fill that, and then everyone, film, as with fashion, as with music, as with all elements of art and culture, I guess, does you do have don't want to sort of go over the top, but you do have people doing unique things on out on the edge, and then it trickles down, and people kind of start doing, you know, the when Star Wars first came out, yes, sci-fi films were massively unpopular. You know, like anything in space and set in the future just wasn't what was happening. You know, it was like The Godfather, it was gangster films and cop buddy chase films and all that sort of stuff. So when the first Star Wars came out, people were kind of like, "Oh, this is going to be rubbish. It's going to bomb." Then obviously, the following couple of years, the amount of sci-fi films and films in space followed that. Yeah, largely because of the money. Obviously, they're following the money in the box office. But again, with same thing with British gangster films and all the knockoffs of, you know, Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels that came out in the football hooligan type films and all that sort of stuff in the early noughties and stuff. So everything kind of follows everything else. But it's, yeah, at the moment it, and other thing where I've talked about maybe filmmakers, and I'd be interested in what you think about the actual amount of content being made at the moment, because there's tons of stuff to watch. Whether you should watch it, it's good enough to watch, I don't know, but there's so much content being made at the moment. Do you have any sort of opinion on that? Do you think there's too much or not enough, the right stuff, or?
Well, I think I read something recently, actually. It was from the BFI, and it said, like, I think it was a dated document, but it said like something like this: at any one time, there's like 100 British films. I think it was features being made at any one time at an independent level, and that's interesting alone because you go, I don't remember seeing 100, British feature films, or I don't remember seeing 100 British short films or whatever. And I think a lot of it is there's a big content separation between what is content for just entertainment purposes, which is the majority of content these days, and what is content for actually art purposes. And you find that because the entertainment content has more funding, typically, just stereotypically, then that's kind of seen more, and that's like what's being pumped out. I think film today has almost been turned into like more of a production line than it was before, which is saying something given how the Hollywood studio model was. And it's like it's difficult to sort of determine because there is a lot being produced, and it's more or less, I think, the stuff that's being seen is the stuff with a marketing budget or has got a big studio behind it, really. And the other stuff like in between is like either really underground, where it's like you go, bloody hell, this is amazing. I've never seen a film where somebody gets chopped up live on screen before because it's so unique. Or it's just like it's just somehow broke the barrier. That's what it is. There's a barrier there now, and it's like you've got like maybe 2% of content out there in that barrier, and it's basically like, can you break the barrier without spending £1 million? Can you break the barrier without spending £2 million? It's a really difficult beast at the moment. I think in terms of like content that's being produced. To be honest, it's hard to say. I think.
Yeah, I agree. For anyone who might be listening to this, hopefully there's one or two. How do they follow the progression of this project? How do they follow you? Do you have some website, social media links you want to put out there?
Yeah. So you can find us on IMDb. Just type "Nobody loves you. You don't deserve to exist." Make sure you clear your history. Nobody wants to see that. And then you can find us at seriousfeather.com. That's just serious and then feather. You can find me at Clarke of Salford on all socials. To be honest, I do my photography work. I update on the film as well and other film projects. And you can find us at Love Film Exist as well on all socials. But yeah, if people want to follow the projects, it's interesting. I mean, we've got maybe, I think it's something like 15, 16 actors in total for an independent film. We've got no money. We're not paying anybody. I'm not being paid. We're shooting it in 4K. We've got a child actor as well. We've recently done a scene with him, a child actor called Ruben Clarke. He's 12 years old and he's delivering a 10-minute monologue. It's insane to get that sort of level of stuff. I ain't seen that since like Kez. And if people want to follow it, then by all means, we're always happy for support. Just people generally interested. But yeah, you can find us at Serious Feather, Love Film Exists, Clarke of Salford. That's the best sort of avenues, really.
Cool. No, absolutely. I'll put those links out there. I'm sure we could talk about all of this for many more hours, but I'll let you go because I appreciate your time.
Yeah, another 9 hours.
But yeah. But look,
no.
we'll do another one, and I'm interested to hear how the project develops and gets ready to get out there, because I certainly would like to watch it. So yeah, I just want to thank you for your time today.
No, thank you. It's been amazing. Thank you so much.